All right, it is September, and let's just start with what we missed in our update last month because of COVID-19. You and a lot of other people in the courthouse were diagnosed with the virus. What was it like to have COVID?
It was absolutely no fun. I mean, it hit me, and I had a day and a night of hot and cold, and then I felt like somebody had beaten me with a baseball bat from top to bottom. And then I was in bed for about a week with no energy whatsoever. None. And then that's been slow to come back, and I lost 25 pounds, which I've since put some back on because I'm eating everything and not even using utensils. I'm starving to death. And so I don't recommend it for anybody. So it wasn't fun. But we had young people here who had it, and one young man, he said he had a different symptom every day. And his wife, she had it, and she was just sick. So everybody's back at work, and everybody seems to be doing well, and no long-term effects.
And we hadn't had any other outbreaks to this size in the county among employees or anything?
No.
Is the county going to have any more state or federal assistance to help blunt the edge on some of the revenue stuff?
Well, we're hoping that we will receive some more assistance because our budget, which we'll start working on actually Tuesday with the Finance Committee, there's been no court fees, no fines, no anything like that. So that's been a heavy blow to our budget. Plus our accommodations tax is down because nobody's staying in hotels. And several other revenue streams have been affected because of that. So we will have a budget. It'll be pretty much like last year's budget. There will be no tax increase and just be a bare bones operation. And thank goodness that our building codes and building permits and all of that right now is still running very, very strong. And we've also received some good numbers from fee in lieu of payments, which is, it takes a while for those to build up, but now we're seeing money from that. So you will not have a tax increase, and I think everything will just continue pretty much the same.
And when will council start voting on the budget?
Well, I think the Finance Committee will meet Tuesday. I know they will. And then maybe the first reading on September the 15th at a midday meeting. But really, to a large degree, if you look at last year's budget, then you're seeing this year's budget. Naturally, projects we've completed aren't back in there.
Right.
So, but that's what we're on now.
Well, what does that mean since we've grown? Does that mean we're going to be tight in some places, or?
Well, I mean, what it means is you're just going to have to watch every penny. We watch every penny anyway every day, but we'll just have to redouble our efforts, be real tight. We won't be hiring anybody. We won't be doing a whole lot of things we would like to do. Thank goodness we have some reserves that, and we always have reserves in the county. We'll have 2 months in our savings accounts, which is recommended by national standards, so we'll have that. And some of the recreation projects we've put money aside from past accommodations tax fees, plus we've received some grants that we don't have to pay back. So we'll still be moving ahead with some projects and doing some things.
And council, you said the next meeting will probably be the 15th?
Yes.
And they're going to continue, people got confused. At the council meetings, masks are required.
Yes.
They're going to check temperatures and stuff, because last time was the first time they were required, I believe.
They're required if you attend a council meeting, and your temperature will be checked.
And just for the foreseeable future, the Civic Center is going to be the home for council
Until
meetings.
some of this dies down, but I mean, this is Labor Day weekend, the Friday before Labor Day weekend. We're just concerned on what could happen after this. This should be and would be our Celebrate Anderson weekend, but we postponed that or canceled it really for this year because you don't need 10,000 people together, and there's no way to socially distance correctly with that many people in that environment.
And you mentioned there won't be any hiring. Is the council going to make that official, a hiring freeze? I know it was on last time's agenda and Mr. Graham wasn't there.
It's official now.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there's no money there to do that.
Right. Some things do seem to be slowly kind of gearing back up. I know there was a big fishing tournament at Green Pond this past weekend. Is it too early to tell if this is going to be a trend where we can kind of get things going again here?
I don't want to say it's a trend until after September, but even at those fishing tournaments, no spectators and strict social distancing is enforced. Now, one good thing about that is that those people, the anglers, are staying in hotels and campgrounds, and their support teams are doing the same thing. So they are helping us fill up some hotel rooms and helping our restaurants out. That thing started last week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we have some more coming up. But again, there will be socially distanced events with no spectators. But when you bring in 500 or 600 people and they stay in your county, that really helps the local economy.
I guess that tourism thing has been taking a hit here because people don't think about how many tourists come here.
There's an article on my desk right now that Greenville County's been devastated, Charleston County's been devastated. Everybody has. If you're depending on the hospitality tax, which the county doesn't have, well, when people couldn't go to restaurants, there's no hospitality tax there, and accommodations tax, which funds a lot of our recreation, because it can only be used for recreation and tourism. If they're not staying in hotels, we don't get that money. So.
And going into the fall of last year, council was evaluating all the 30-plus parks in the county to see which ones were viable. Is that still being kind of...
We've done away with a couple and are looking at a couple, but here's the funny thing, or it's not funny, but because of COVID and the lack of things to do, boat sales are through the roof, RV sales are through the roof, state parks are at capacity at state parks that have never been at capacity. So people are going outdoors and they're going outside. So, we're looking to add more recreation. We just had a public hearing last week on a development of the old Ashbury Shoals.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you about.
And it's going to be called the Shoals of Ashbury, and it's going to have a floating water park, and it's going to have yurts and glamping.
That's our first yurts, isn't it?
Yes. It's going to have treehouses that are ADA accessible. The whole park will be ADA accessible, and we're looking for big things from that. And because it's right across the water from Green Pond, I'm pretty sure those two things are going to have a symbiotic relationship. Plus, a big water marina near the dam, the Boggs Brothers own, they're putting tons and tons of money into that development, and that's really going to turn into be something that you will see on Lake Lanier or some of the larger lakes. So you're getting a lot of lake access. I mean, everybody's buying a boat because you can put your family in a boat and you're socially distanced. So that's a big trend. I think that trend's going to continue. I think a lot of people are going, hey, we can go do this, and really it's not as expensive as some of the other things we were doing, and so it's going to be a trend not just here in Anderson but everywhere. But we're going to benefit from it because we have Lake Hartwell.
And do they have a timeline on when they can finish that water park?
They wanted to start this year, but because it's a core property, we did archaeological studies, every animal study, all of that has to be done. This will be done to Corps specs and regulations. The county had to lease the property from the Corps to allow this. Then we had to put requests for proposals out to let people have a choice. Then we had to do the public hearing, public comment session, and then it has to go through council really on two streams, the lease and the lease with the people who are going to run it. But they are desperate. They are banging the door every day to get in there and start clearing the underbrush. They want to be open next March.
Well, that's not that far away.
No.
And before we leave it, when we say parks in the county, some of those were rarely used, and if you saw them, you didn't know they were a park.
Well, some of them were
just some grass. Yeah.
Some of them were just some grass, and they weren't doing anybody. Nobody knew where they were. It was just in a lot of situations something somebody gave the county because they didn't want it. That's a lot of that.
It doesn't seem, from the last few council meetings and times we've talked, that local industry particularly has been hit hard by COVID. They seem to continue to expand and add jobs. Do we have any more announcements coming soon? Or?
Yes, we have many more announcements coming soon. TTI is going to be looking for a great number of people. These are really entry level, ideal for high school and college students. There's going to be a massive number of those. Arthrex is continuing to expand. They're around 300. First Quality is still hiring. Just about everybody is still hiring. Anderson County had a drive-by job fair at the Civic Center. We had to cut it off at 288 people who came through, and you had Arthrex, you had all the major companies there, Michelin, all of the big ones there, and people came in their car, socially distanced, and applied for jobs. And it was so successful that we're going to do another one, and then after that we may do another one, because even though our small business has been hurt terribly, at least the manufacturing base is continuing to stand up. But I mean, we're blessed because the county's efforts to diversify industry have paid off. First Quality, you go and buy toilet paper pretty much all the time. Michelin, you can ride your tires a long time, but eventually you're going to buy a tire. The human body is going to continue to break down as people get older and live longer, and Arthrex is supplying the replacement parts. So we have a lot of industries like that, and we have some that do defense work. And so they're going strong, and we hope they continue to go strong, because that's what's going to pull us out of this recession and provide those jobs that are going to allow people to go back to small businesses and to support those small businesses.
And I talked to some of those people at that job fair, some of the companies, and for example, you know, the Irish firm that came in, engineering firm a couple of years ago, said they couldn't build fast enough to have parking for their employees. They needed people so
That's exactly
quickly.
right, and they have a 100,000 square foot expansion. They are going gangbusters, and they need people to work. And more industries are like that in Anderson County. And what you have there is, hey, Anderson County is a good place to work. Anderson County's always had a very strong industrial base because of the textile industry. Probably the only county in the state that was as strong industrially and agriculturally at the same time, because it's so geographically large. But that heritage, or maybe it's in our genes, has passed through. And you also have people who are leaving other countries are going, you know, I may have to pay another $1 or $5 here, but they're not taking my plant. There are no trade restrictions. My primary market's in the United States. I don't really need those shipping costs, so let's come home. And you're seeing more and more of that, which is a trend that's been going on for the last 8 years, but it's really going on, especially trade situation with China. People are saying, oh, we'll just do it here, never mind.
I guess the other one thing we've been talking about for a while now is the Courthouse Square property. It seems to have been in a holding pattern for a while. Is it still?
Well, that's COVID related too. And we met with them last week, and we're still making progress, and they're doing some additional work. But again, we're in no hurry, absolutely no hurry, because you don't want to make a 100-year mistake. So that's where we are on that.
Who all's giving input for that? I mean, who all's working on that plan?
Well, right now, I'm working on it, several other people, some community members and everything, just trying to work out some basic stuff, not the huge concept of what it's going to do. We've had conversations with the city about the development of the plaza spaces and things like that. So a lot of talk, but no public input yet, which will be required and needed.
Any chance of putting some grass on it until we decide, or is this?
And I promise you that is a very good idea, that we've even discussed that, is we just turn it into a green space and wait and see what happens, because we're not going to make a mistake.
Would that be very expensive just to plow that up and put grass?
Well, you know, there's a basement over there, so we will have to bring in the dirt and do things like that. Would it be back-breaking? No, but it would make a beautiful green space.
Let's talk about the other updates. You're talking about projects. Dolly Cooper Park just put out their plans for public input.
We had six meetings in the Powdersville area to get public input on the development of Dolly Cooper Park. In about 2 weeks, we will be going out to bid for the baseball field up there. We have just completed a beautiful river walk beside the Saluda River, which is in operation and access now. We're redesigning the kayak launch up there, redesigning that. The county has purchased Laker land thanks to Councilman Jimmy Davis and Representative Wes Cox and others taking grant money and some money from here and there. We purchased that land right behind the dam in Piedmont, so you'll be able to go from Dolly Cooper to Piedmont. We already have the kayak launch to go down at Piedmont. So all of that's coming together is a set piece.
And people can still look at all those plans. who's in charge of that, and how can people look at that?
They can go to the Anderson County website and take a look at those plans, and there's a provision for people to give input. All of that's still available.
Let's talk about, as we sit here, we're less than 60 days away from election time. What's Anderson County's voter registration done to get ready for this year?
Well, the General Assembly met this week and they made some changes. And so I think the Registration and Elections Commissions, which we don't have direct oversight over, they have a Registration and Elections Board, which is appointed by members of the General Assembly. So it's one of those things where we are pleased to be able to pay for it, but have very little input on the day-to-day operations. But they seem to be geared up, and there's a lot of interest and involvement by the legislative delegation, and legislative delegation, especially Representative Wes Cox, would like more satellite voting areas. We tried that a little bit in the last election. It worked out very well, and we will need more of that.
And if the primaries are any indication, the new machines have worked really well and are pretty fast.
No problems and nobody complaining about that. But I can tell you this, not only in Anderson, but across the United States, they're starved for poll workers. So if you would like to be a poll worker, reach out to the Registration and Elections Commission, and I'm sure that they have a spot for you. You can do your civic duty and make a few dollars.
Is the sewer project, Pendleton, Clemson, Anderson, still on hold, or are we looking at other ideas now?
No, we're not looking at any other ideas. We've applied for a massive grant from EDA, COVID funds, shovel-ready projects, which we have, which would be the joint project between Clemson, Pendleton, and Anderson County. As a matter of fact, this week we got the outlines of an agreement which we'll all be taking to our respective councils. That's the best option, makes more sense than anything, reduces pollution. We're also looking at closing some other smaller wastewater treatment plants that will make Lake Hartwell cleaner and safer. So no, that's going very well, and we're working the grant channels as hard as we can, all three of us, to make that money come to fruition.
Why is that such a complicated issue? People tend to glaze over when you start talking about sewers, and
I don't know why they glaze over it, because it's one of the most important things that we do is put in sewer lines, and it's where growth occurs.
what about the Civic Center? Y'all made new plans, hired some people. What's Civic Center looking like for the year ahead? I know COVID's had some impact on.
We're not having any events. It's getting used just about every day, but it's getting used by governmental entities, training for the Sheriff's Department, other things like that. It's in constant use. We're just not having any public events right now, and we're reevaluating that almost on a monthly basis.
But the long-term goal is what, to try to keep entertainment coming in, or what's?
Absolutely, to keep entertainment coming in. Provide something for people in Anderson to do. I mean, we had to cancel a couple of concerts. One of them's already sold out, but it's been rescheduled for the spring. So we're hoping all of that will be able to happen in the spring. And more than like people wanting to do Christmas concerts. We're still kind of looking, waiting to see.
That seems to be the year of waiting to see, doesn't it? 2020
This is the year of waiting to see. And it's almost the year of waiting to see where the other shoe's going to drop.
No, that's not what we want to hear. What about the sign on 85 coming across Georgia? Are we going to be unveiling for that here?
It's up.
We're going to have an unveiling time, or just?
There are a lot of things that we usually unveil or announce, but we can't do it because we don't want to get a crowd together. I mean, you're talking about, they have a funeral, then half the people who went to the funeral die. So you say, well, you can socially distance. Well, yeah, that's a good idea, but we'll unveil later. The sign's up.
Census 2020 is still underway, and Anderson County is still one of the best in the state, reporting a little above national average. But for people who haven't responded, let's one more time remind them why it's so important that they do.
Please do, because everything depends on that. How much money you receive from the federal government, how your population receives funds, services that you can provide. It's not something that's just there. And I keep telling people it's in the United States founding documents that we will have a census every 10 years. We need to do that. We have great response in Anderson County. I would like for us to have even better response, because I've been saying for a long time that we have 204,000 people in Anderson County. I've seen other estimates now of 206 and 207, and almost another 15,000 in another 10 years. So the more we know, The more we know how many people are here, that affects how many police officers you have. That affects fire departments. That affects everything. It's good to know what we have to deal with, because if you tell me that, well, in 1995 we had this many police officers and that was good, but then now I've got 30,000 more people, well, maybe that, maybe that's not good. There are 30,000 more people wandering around.
And it's very easy to do now. They've made it as easy as you can possibly make the census this year.
Yes.
People can do it online. The farmers market is still open, winding down produce with safe distancing, masks, and other plans. How has the market fared this year?
Very, very, very well under very difficult conditions. Sharon Nicometto always gets all the credit and praise for doing that. We tried to limit it just to essentials, not crafters, and I hate that, and not people selling flowers, which I hate, but hopefully we won't be doing that next year. If you notice, we're also in conjunction with the city going to be doing some beautification around the farmers market and several other sites downtown. That's going to be real nice. Good partnership there.
What about Paul's update? Anything new going on at Paul's?
Paul's is rocking along, doing good. We're continuing to spay and neuter animals. We're also providing services. If you can't afford dog food, reach out to us. If you can't afford cat food, we'll try to help you with that. There are all kinds of services that we try to provide so you can keep your pet. Just anything we can do to help you and to take care of the animal population in Anderson County, which I think that we're doing an excellent job. Excellent job.
What else is keeping you busy as administrator these days?
Everything. Look, I didn't, when I was in the bed, I was still working, so I never took a day off. I mean, I worked remotely from the bed.
Is there anything, though, visible people would need to know about that you're...
No, there's so much economic development that's in the embryonic or fixing to burst stage. And always our biggest thing has been to provide good jobs for the people in Anderson County so everything else will take care of itself. I mean, all of these people are now flocking to Anderson. And instead of slowing down, we just announced Pelzer Point. 212,000 square foot spec building. They don't even have a tenant. We had meetings yesterday with another company. They want to build two 250,000 square foot spec buildings. That means they're building money, spending $25–30 million to build these buildings because they know somebody's going to go in there and do that. Out at the airport, we have Mr. Roos is building a 55,000 square foot spec building. He's already getting hits on people who want to go there. You might know we tore down the old terminal this week, getting ready for the new terminal. Some other things going on there. Lots of things shifting and changing at the airport. More interest there. The flights that we get at our airport are slowly picking back up.
Kind of seen some of those planes, yeah.
But that's corporate travel. International travel, I think, is down 90%, and I think just regular air travel is down around 70%. But corporate travel has picked back up, and that's our bread and butter because they buy jet fuel out there.
And y'all have to balance the privacy issues that a lot of these companies want to announce. Why are they so reticent to let people know they're...
Well, they don't want to let their competition know what they're doing, and that's usually the case. Because, well, if they're going over there, what's that mean here? If they're building a new plant, that means something else is going on. So that has everything to do with it. Just good old American capitalism, keeping everything together. But we know what's going on, and we vet all of these companies, and we're still the easiest place to do business in the Southeast. And we're also trying to redouble our efforts to make sure that we treat Arthrex and Mr. Jones just the same, that there's no different level of service. Miss Alicia Hunter, who's been with the county for some time, is now the Director of Building Codes, Land Use, and Zoning. All of that is together, and she's doing a wonderful job streamlining it even more and meshing all those services together.
Well, as we sit here and recording this interview, it's 83 days till Thanksgiving, which means the weekend before is 74 days away. And that is the weekend when the county Christmas tree will be up and lights going, right?
I talked to two of Santa's elves yesterday, and they said, we're probably not going to have the Christmas tree because of the COVID. Isn't that right? And I said, that's incorrect. So you little elves, just get ready because we're going to start getting that ready here pretty quick.
And it's going to be bigger again this year.
Yes, it's going to be bigger again this year.
And just so people will know, not get confused, we always try to clarify this. We're going to light it up for people home for Thanksgiving holidays, and then go dark that next week, and then light it back up for the official.
If there is going to be
If there's an official lighting.
If
If not,
there's
we'll
going
just.
to be an official.
And have you
And
had?
that's yet to be determined, because you know that square is packed. And so we're kind of weighing that.
And have you picked your playlist out for the Christmas carols you're going to blast out of the clock tower?
No, but we'll be having a jazz Christmas, then we'll be having the Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby Christmas. We'll have a huge selection that will appeal to every person in Anderson County. Country music Christmas, a soulful Christmas, you name it, something for everybody.
And a reminder to people that need to know when the meetings are, people say they want to get information, remind them one more time where they can find all this information.
Please go to the Anderson County website, and all of that information will be there.